Hello, today we are going to talk about how to adjust your shoulder rest and how to find the right position for the shoulder rest. So first thing to think about really is kind of what's your aim with your shoulder rest, and the aim is, well, obviously for it to be comfortable, but also for you to be able to lift your fiddle into playing position and not need to change your natural posture. So the second that we start having to kind of clamp down or lift your shoulders or twist is when you start to get twinges and tension, and in the long run you can hurt yourself. So look in the mirror, lift your fiddle up. Can you support your fiddle without needing to massively change your posture? So that is what we are aiming for. The first thing you can do is get to know your shoulder rest. Hello. So take it off your fiddle and just see where it feels comfortable. So generally they kind of start on your shoulder and they come across your collarbone. So see if or where you can feel comfy without the fiddle, and that gives you a bit of a better idea of kind of where it's going to sit. Some of them go right over your shoulder like this, and some kind of start on your shoulder like this one. I've got a whole collection here for you to see in a minute. So this video, whether or not it's the first time you're setting up your shoulder rest, or if you're just trying to problem solve because something doesn't feel quite right or quite comfortable, should be able to help with both. You know, it's good to go back to the basics and kind of check your setup from time to time anyway. So first things first, where is a shoulder rest adjustable? Now this is tricky because there's so many different kinds of shoulder rests. I mean, I've just grabbed a selection of random ones here, and obviously they're all very different. So I'm going to try and generalize what will be most common. This might not be exhaustive. So first thing, and probably the most important thing, is that almost all shoulder rests, legs twist so that they can be adjusted on the height. So kind of anti-clockwise to make it higher and clockwise to make it lower. They are, if you look, it might be easier to see on your own shoulder rest, they're screws. So you will be able to unscrew it to the point where the leg comes out. If that happens, don't stress. You'll be able to screw it back in, no worries. So this shoulder rest is just a basic one. I won't say where it's from, but comes with loads of kind of starter beginner violins, and even these have got twisty legs. Generally you want your collarbone, chest side to be a little bit higher than the shoulder side. Obviously this side's lower down when your fiddle's on it, so just to make it a little bit more level. So that's a good starting place. Unscrew the chest side and leave this one as is if it's the first time you're using it. Another place that they adjust is the angle of the leg. So the reason that that is the case is so that you can angle the pad usually towards yourself, which means that you're not going to get this plastic bit digging into you. So if that's been feeling uncomfortable, that's a good thing to try as well. Some of them have got bendable plates, like this one of mine. The whole thing, all of this top bit, you can twist and bend to your exact shape. Now again, doing that without your fiddle can be a good place to start. So these are super adjustable. They're also unfortunately a little bit more money. Chances are if it's your first shoulder rest, you've got one more like this. Okay, another important thing is that the width of the feet is adjustable. So again, with some of the cheaper ones, a lot of them do 2 sizes, so the width is really adjustable. So make sure you've got it on the right setting for, like, this is 3/4 or full size, for example. So on these ones, there is a screw and 2 different holes, and you can literally just move the whole foot plate. But even ones that are only for one size, such as this one, you can kind of see there's another hole that I could screw the leg into there. This is just to allow for slight differences in the width or the thickness of your fiddle, but also in where you put it. So if you have narrow shoulders or whatever and you keep it further back, it's going to need to be on a narrower adjustment. So that is another place that you can adjust. I think that probably about covers where they're adjustable for now. So let's talk about kind of troubleshooting and where it sits on your fiddle. So this is unfortunately a very personal thing to you, your playing style, your shape, your shoulder width, you know. There is no secret shortcut that I know of. If you know one, please tell me, it would be very useful. It is just kind of trial and error and finding what feels comfortable and what feels right. So the first thing, let's talk about width, since we're just on that subject anyway. And if your shoulder rest feels loose or falls off the fiddle really easily when you go to lift it up, then you need to make your shoulder rest narrower, which we've just talked about. So again, this is another system where you can change it. They will be near the feet somewhere, or the leg will come out and screw into a different place. If the shoulder rest legs feel far too tight and it feels like you're going to break it by pushing it further round, and you can't slide the feet round far enough, make it wider. I'm sure you maybe guessed that. Excuse me one moment. So the next thing is position on the violin. So obviously it's quite hard to tell where that is supposed to go. Generally, if you have got narrower shoulders, that might not be something you know about yourself. When you buy a t-shirt or jacket, the shoulders often slide off your shoulder, then you've probably got narrow shoulders. Then the feet generally need to be further back, so closer to this metal or the pin at the bottom, if you've got narrow shoulders. If you've got quite wide shoulders, generally, then slide them further away. So your shoulder rest should be fairly easy to kind of move around like that. Although it is possible to do this with the fiddle in place, you might find it easier to kind of go back. If you've seen the video I did on how to put the shoulder rest on, where you put your fiddle upside down, knees in this bit here, you can adjust it with two hands. But once you've got it in the kind of position that you want, you can just do little adjustments once it's already up on your shoulder. I'll probably say this a few times because it's really, really useful. If you find a position that feels comfortable, take a photo of the back of your fiddle and it'll help you, because obviously if you're putting it in the case you have to take the shoulder rest off, unfortunately. So take a photo while you're getting used to putting your shoulder rest on. It's always a good idea. Oh, the last thing with your position is if it feels like when you're putting the fiddle up, the shoulder rest is trying to pull away from you, it's kind of slipping away, then it's too far away. So see how that feels like, or looks like. I guess you can't see how it feels. When I go to support it, the shoulder rest kind of pulls away. That's because I've got it far too far away from my small shoulders. So it should all just stay quite settled. Okay, next point of problem solving is the height. I've mentioned this a little bit at the beginning with the height of the legs. If you still feel like you have to clamp, you know, it should be kind of 50-50 between your chin, your head natural weight, not holding it, and your hand. If, like without a shoulder rest, to hold the fiddle up, not only do you look very funny, it'll be quite difficult to play. So if you have to clamp or lift your shoulder, then make your legs higher and spin them around to make them a bit wider. If you've got a long neck, which I do, you might need to find a shoulder rest with a little bit of an extra height adjustment like I've got. You can also, for a lot of the brands, buy different legs that are just longer legs. If you really like the shoulder rest you've got, you can usually get slightly different legs that are longer if you've got a long neck. If you now feel that your head is kind of tilting away from the fiddle, then you've gone too far, and lower it back down. If the fiddle isn't level and you like it to be quite flat, so if you're kind of sitting at this angle, then adjust one foot. Remember, you don't need to do all adjustments to both feet, and it's usually the side in the centre of your chest that needs to go up rather than your shoulder. Okay, again, if this video is problem solving rather than first time using a shoulder rest, it's worth trying all of these things and seeing what it feels like when the legs are too high and what it feels like when the legs are too low, and so on, just to help you narrow down what it is you're feeling when you're playing that doesn't feel quite right. Okay, we're nearly there. Well done for getting this far. So another thing is the angle of your actual violin. So again, this is personal. I'll pop my shoulder rest back on for a second. Your shoulder rest can be, or your fiddle, sorry, can be anywhere from out to the side or all the way to the front, and that is playable. I would suggest most people will aim for about halfway in between the two. So kind of when you're standing, it's like kind of pointing similar direction to your foot. You might be being taught slightly different than that. That's fine, go with what your teacher says. But if you're just starting, aim for about halfway in between the two. If you've already started learning, the way you bow and everything will be set up for that, so keep it in the same place. So once you think you've found a comfy position for your width and the position and all the rest of it, try bowing and see if it feels natural if you already play, and see if you've got your fiddle set up in the right place for your playing style. Once the shoulder rest is on the fiddle or violin, try holding it up so that the shoulder rest is comfortable rather than just with the violin, and see if you can adjust it to bring the fiddle into the right place. So keep the shoulder rest where it's comfy and just kind of you're moving the fiddle rather than the shoulder rest. Yeah, so again, if the fiddle needs to move further forward towards the right, then push the right foot of the shoulder rest towards the scroll, and if it needs to move out to the left, then do the opposite, and then adjust the other foot. Okay, angle of your shoulder rest, we mentioned that at the beginning. That's just about being able to move the pad slightly so that you're not getting the hard edge of the shoulder rest. Mine is kind of locked in position, but you can see a little bit of the movement that way and that way. It might be easier again to do this with the fiddle between your legs, two hands, rather than trying to do it all in position. Okay, if the shoulder rest doesn't sit on your shoulder, it might just be that you need to adjust, if you have a bendable plate, adjusting the bendable plate. As I said, only the more expensive shoulder rests have this, and it's not necessary for a beginner, so feel free to skip this bit if this doesn't apply, but make sure the position of your shoulder rest and the angle and everything is all right before you bend it, and then feel where you'd like the shoulder rest to sit and hold it against, take the shoulder rest off and hold it against your front like we did at the beginning, and bend the plates into shape. It's usually best to start bending this and then twist the bottom bit towards your chest to make it feel comfortable. It's difficult to do fine adjustments when this is on your fiddle, so it might be putting it on and taking it off a few times. Okay, so that about covers us. I've tried to whiz through that. I hope that all makes sense. If you've got any questions at all, then feel free to drop a comment or message us. If you're still not managing, as I said, this is unfortunately just trial and error. It's worth going through the list a few times, because every time you adjust one thing, then something else might feel slightly differently. Stand in front of a mirror, like I said at the beginning, lift your fiddle into position, watch your posture carefully, and note what changes you have to make to hold the fiddle comfortable, and find what you need to adjust to fix that. If you get really stuck, hold your shoulder rest in a comfortable position with one hand and lift the fiddle into position with the other, and note roughly where the feet are sitting. Obviously this is a rough guide. It is doable by yourself, but much easier if you can get someone else to give you a hand with this. It might be, if you've done all of this, you've tried everything, you've gone through the list a few times, and it still doesn't feel right, it might be that you need a different shoulder rest. If you really can't make it comfortable, then unfortunately it might just be, I mean, I've gone through a few different before I settled on the one that I use mostly. So, for example, some of them are just too low for me. So it is worth keeping that in mind. It's a last resort. You know, most shoulder rests, you can make them work even if you know you want a different one in the future. If possible, go to a music shop and try some different ones. That is so valuable, rather than spending lots of money and not quite getting the right thing. Alright, I think that's about everything that I can think of in my stream of consciousness. So thank you very much for watching. I really hope this was helpful, and good luck on your shoulder rest mission.